expect that you guys should get out of this session. This is pretty deliberate as to why I'm putting this up here, because there are specific things that we've had struggles with that I want to make sure that everybody fully understands. So these are the key things that we want you to take away from this. So understanding kitting terms and definitions, being able to differentiate between pre-kitting, assembly finishing operations and pre-kitting. That's a big one that people have been struggling with. And then know what the current state distro is and how to access it. That will go a lot over that as well. Provide kitting with complete and accurate information. That's ultimately the goal, right? We want to make sure that they have what they need. And then in order to do that, you need to understand how to completely fill out a kitting distro. So those are the things that we'll talk about today. And I'm hoping that by the end of this session, you'll be able to have a lot more confidence that you know that you're doing it the right way. That's what we're trying to provide for you guys. So a little bit of background as to how we got here. I think pretty much everybody here has taken, except for one person that shall remain nameless that has a cane in front of them right now, has gone through the kitting tour. I've been paying attention to make sure I asked if everybody could go through the kitting tour before that by the end of October, because we knew this was coming. Setting you up to be able to understand some of the things that we're going to talk about right now. But when we went through that kitting tour with you guys, we did notice that some people were struggling with some of the assessment questions, and it was honestly a hard assessment. But when we were looking at the assessment, we were trying to figure out what issues there were and how we could make it better. So we went and looked at what were the main complaints and how to give you guys some better tools. And one of the biggest things that we found was that we're not all talking the same language. So even within the kitting department, they're calling something the same thing with different names, and you guys are calling the same thing different names, and we're not all speaking the same TBG language. So through all that, we decided to come up with a standard terms and definitions for kitting, so that you guys, we know we're all talking the same language. And not only are we talking the same language in here, but once we're done with this, we're going to have kitting be trained on the same thing, so they can be talking the same language, and shipping and fulfillment. So if we call something this, everybody knows what that means. So that was one of the big things that we found out. When we started to figure out some of the documentation for that tour, we were going to try to pull together like a perfect distro to be able to walk through that tour. We started looking at other jobs, and we found that it was really difficult to find one that had everything the way that they wanted to see it. So we decided just to make our own, and through that process, we found out what are the required items on a distro, and it just became something bigger that we decided to make a training like this. That's why it's a little bit longer, but there's a lot of good stuff, and I hope that you'll find out that by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of all of it. It does not just affect you guys, and there is a lot of reasons why it is important. So to talk about the whys and who it affects, I just have Linda talk a little bit about it, since it affects her department, but it's not always all about her, so have her talk about that a little bit.
That's not fair. We wanted to feel special once.
Okay.
Yeah, when we started talking about it doing the tour, part of my team went through the tour too, and they did not pass the assessment. So we went, we might have a problem. You guys can't pass it and my team can't pass it. Yep, pretty much we know that there's a disconnect somewhere. So we did try to find perfect distro to lay out in front of everybody when they did take the tour, and we couldn't find one. So then we decided we needed to make one. As we were trying to make one, we were pulling together distros and went, isn't this interesting? It's all over the place. So the goal and the why we're doing it is consistency. We want everybody to be doing something exactly the same. Consistency means that Cassie calls in tomorrow and says, oh, Larry, I'm rich. I'm not coming back. Amber can go pick up her distro and know where to go because she's already done it. Somebody has to come in late in the morning and we need a kit check. You can ask anybody to come out and look at the kit check because your distro tells it all. It tells us what we need to do. We can't service shipping very well when we have information that goes swirly-whirly back there. They come to us and go, really? And then we have to go back to you guys. You're going to gain hours. I wish I could tell you how many times we write an email that you have to stop and read, and then you have to come out. If you took like one day, how many times that happened, by a week, by a month, how many hours all of a sudden. You can eat bonbons, you can do whatever you want, Kim or whatever. But you're going to definitely not have to be bugged by us so often. Same with like when it goes to fulfillment, when it goes to shipping and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be globally affecting a lot of people. It wasn't really all about us. We were just trying to help each other out, and we discovered that there was a lot of disconnect across the board. And I was really surprised that my team didn't even know what they were looking at. It was kind of, uh-oh, we're in trouble. So we here we are. It's pretty exciting. I'm so super thrilled to be doing this too. I'm so excited. Consistency is going to be such a big winner for all of us across the board.
Yeah, and if you think about it, we're all co-owners. We want to make sure that we are set up for the company to succeed and be more efficient and be able to produce things at a faster rate and be confident that we know that we're doing it the right way. And all of this affects all of that. So it's a good thing. And then I have on here as well the grand scheme. The grand scheme is once we get you guys getting in good habits of putting the same thing in the same spot the same way every time, we can really then for sure work towards automation and getting things so you have less that you have to put in. It will pull things in automatically, and it'll even make your jobs even easier after that. But in order to do that, we have to start here and not have 60 different ways of people submitting distros so that 40 different people have to try to decipher that, and there's just a lot of downtime trying to figure that stuff out. This way we can just make it be very consistent, very fluid, and hopefully I think you'll see that it'll help you set your job up more effectively and even help you maybe organize it a little bit differently.
Is it the new one that's like black and the template?
The template is on that's the old new one.
Okay.
We'll get through all of this. So that being said, I don't want to sit here and talk to you the whole time, and you guys probably want to listen to me talk the whole time. The first thing that we talked about was terms and definitions. There's confusion there. Some people are speaking Greek, some people are speaking French, and nobody's speaking TBG English. So what we have right now is, I'm going to hand out a packet to you guys. It has all the definitions, but it doesn't have the terms. These are the terms right here. So what I want you to do is work in your teams of 2 that you're sitting at your table. You guys can probably just work together over there. And you'll have a packet, and you'll just have to match the term to the definition. Don't worry, it's not graded. You're not going to fail. We're working together. You guys all look a little nervous. You're screwed. There we go, right?
We're gonna beat you today.
We'll work through it together at the end.
You're joking, right? I agree. We're gonna win.
It's not a competition either.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yes,
I'm after
So match the terms in here to the definitions that you have.
Yeah, you guys want
you didn't help me out.
maybe
In the beginning,
years ago.
about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we'll have about 5-6 minutes, then we'll just regroup and talk together. Oh, sorry.
Whatever you.
The biggest one we've had, so.
What you got?
She's already done this.
Pretty sure that's right, Jordan.
Well, based on my previous yeah.
I know, but that's why I'm
No, we're talking about number 2. That's what I'm saying. We're just trying to make you fail. Stop trying to sabotage my good faith. Sure, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see it's a page. Page. Yeah, I'm guessing that's a trick question. Gave us the answer, yeah.
Or is it just that?
No, it's back, right.
put together to,
One more minute.
come on,
Yeah.
okay, 2 more minutes.
Thanks.
That's for you. I stood over him and said,
The dolphins. So far, dude. I can't cheat off you if you're on that page.
Jordan.
Is that how you got through school?
Yeah, both times.
Both times.
You went through everything, but
Yeah. Hey, only a few grades, okay? Yeah. No, you don't, that's the tricky part. Gotcha. I guess so, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Okay, I know not all of you are done, but that's okay, we're gonna go through it together anyways, I just wanted to get you guys thinking about it. You don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. So let's go through this, that first one at the top, the 2-digit code corresponding to each item in the project, this is used, placing in line and pick list to quickly identify visually which item goes into the kit. That one was the alpha code. So that one, you guys, right? Okay, we're on the right track. So I have there, for example, AA, AB, AC, etc. If you get to AZ, you go back to BA, BB, BC. Did anybody get into triple digits here at all?
No, they be trusted.
No, Sephora does a couple other people do too, but yeah, those get to be pretty long distros. When you guys went through the tour, did it help to see that on the line, like actually how they use those and they use the pick slips and all the pick lists and all that? Did it help to visually see what they're doing out there when you're on the tours? I know that for me, it kind of connected those dots. The next one is the assembly/finishing instructions. These are the details of what assembly or application instructions by machine or hand are required to make a product a finished piece. This information must be included on the production ticket, in the notes section, or via the attached BOM. It is also required on the kitting distro to verify the finishing process was completed at the time of kit check. Who is currently putting it on the distro as of right now? Are any of you doing that? The finishing instructions on the distro? Yeah, this is new. I don't think that, I think there's a couple people who have been doing it. This is new, which is fine if you haven't, but we'll show you on the distro how that works. And essentially, it basically is a good double check. So let's say you have someone that has tape on it, and they have it all set up on the line, and they go to look at the distro and compare the product, and all of a sudden they see that the item doesn't have tape on it. That's a good way to catch that, hey, this needed to have some application or finishing processes to it. It's also helpful for you when you go to the kit check, or like Linda said, if somebody else comes for you, you can see what goes where. Also, the BOM is really important as well. If you do have a BOM that shows some sort of placement, always include that on the production ticket, the most current version of that BOM. They do look at those, and it actually helps them quite a bit. So the one thing that has been coming up about this is when you attach a BOM to a production ticket via collateral, does anybody remember the steps, that extra step they have to take for that PDF so that you make sure that it gets printed out? It's kind of a little bit of a trickier.
DS.
Yep, the underscore DS at the end of it so that it gets printed out when it goes out the door. So this is just a reminder about that. If you do have a PDF, you need to rename it to have the underscore DS. That's I think it's a
Is it-
automation thing.
Is that case sensitive or?
I think it is. I think it has to be at lowercase, not positive. I'm gonna send a recap after all this, and that's something that came up, so I'll have that in that email as well.
And that was before the extension?
Yes, yep. _ds.pdf. Yep. That way it prints a copy out when they print out the tickets and stuff. But for kitting, they actually still go to ticket and they'll double check that they have the most recent BOM, that sort of thing. So make sure that you have current BOM on there if you have any kind of finishing instructions on it.
Can you still print out a BOM and include it with all the paperwork that you give Kitty?
So long as it's attached
To the file, you know, when you
to the, well, so long as the BOM is still attached to the production ticket. If you don't put it on the production ticket and it all of a sudden gets lost, then there we are again going, oh, where is it?
But we can still, but it's okay for us to make a copy and put it
Yep,
with
you
our
can,
kitting
but as
ticket
long
and
as it's
all that stuff.
attached. Don't attach it to the kitting ticket. We use the kitting ticket when we're kitting, not when we're doing applications
Oh,
and
sure,
doing
sure.
all of the other things, especially if it's going through our machine world. They don't even hardly ever look at a kitting ticket over in the machine world. So it needs to be attached to the collateral production ticket.
Makes sense?
Yeah, so if you have a BOM that has multiple pieces being taped in different, should we break that out and just have the one per part that's pertinent for that one, or the BOM attached to each? Let's say PPG, for example, because some of them were different tape, layouts. Should I break out
Separate
that?
each pages.
Yeah,
Do you want the?
Are they all on one ticket? Are they printed all on one ticket? If they're
I
printed
mean,
on
they're-
multiple tickets, then each BOM should go with the multiple ticket, the
Okay.
ticket that they
that
belong
answers my
to.
question. Yep,
If it's got all on one ticket, then all on one ticket.
okay.
We're talking a lot about these production tickets and finishing instructions, that sort of thing. Again, remember that was one of my learning objectives, so we're gonna talk a lot about that through the course of this session. So that was the second item on here. The third term is bulk shipment. There are different types of bulk shipment. Loose materials that are skid packed per location, or kit shipping per location, typically freight, such as going to a distribution center. Those are two of the main ones. If you look at that picture, it's a little hard to tell because it's a copy, but on the right-hand side, it's got a bunch of kits that are all nicely stacked up there, and then on the left-hand side, it has a lot of loose pieces. This is all going to the same place, but this would be considered a bulk shipment. Another important thing here is it says bulk shipments still require kitting distro to define all the critical job components and specifications. So that might be new for a lot of you or some of you. If you haven't been making a distro for bulk shipments, you do need to. Like, again, think of the distro for them as like an engineer drawing for a fixture. This is what they need to know how to do their job. It's really critical that they give them that information. So even if it's bulk, they need to know what goes where, or how many to take. They can make a pick slip, that sort of thing, pick list. So those things need to be, even if it's a bulk, it does need a distro. Does that
And
make
if it's coming into kitting, we really need the distro. That's what we're training and living by, is the distro. Everything we touch is distro related. As we continue to talk about this, we're gonna tell you all the things that you don't have to put on a kitting ticket anymore that's gonna make your lives easier. And it goes on the distro, and then that's what we work off of and work from. And that's their goal, is to always be able to read their distro and move it along. If something cuts and it's going bulk and it just cuts and goes back to shipping, I doubt that they need a distro. If it cuts and goes right over to fulfillment, you'd have to check with the guys that do fulfillment as to whether or not they do, because there are parts of the distro that they use for the WMS. So if it comes into kitting though, yeah, we do.
Okay. The next one there is, it's finished goods inventory, FGI. Parts completed through the manufacturing process, including tape, magnet, pre-kits, etc. These parts get stored over TBG2 until requested. That's pretty much the exact definition that Amanda gave you guys a few months back, and we actually rolled out the FGI. Is anybody here doing FGI at all? With the SKUs or collab or anything like that? A couple of you. Is it going okay? I mean, it's a newer process. I haven't heard much lately, so I'm assuming no news is good news, so that's good. Yeah, so they use FGIs, or we'll talk about how that can go on the distro here in a minute as to why that's actually important on here. Below that is the kit ID number. This is the number used to tie all the jobs together for kitting. They use it to verify components. That was pretty standard. Okay, the next one here, this is like the global definition of what is a distro. It's a little bit longer, but it is a spreadsheet. So the answer here is kitting distro. It is a spreadsheet used to communicate critical job specifications to the kitting department. It details what items must be packed together to reach each individual store. and it has critical items on it such as TUG produced product, as well as customer supplied materials and purchases from outside vendors. So you can put your POs on there, you can put your supply pieces all in that same spot. I'll show you how that looks in the distro. You put all that on there and they have everything in a one-stop shop, and so do you as well. You have everything all in one spot. It's also used by shipping to create each individual pick lists. It's also used by fulfillment in the WMS. But what I have here in big and bold is that basically all jobs that go through kitting require a distro. So if you haven't been doing a distro for some things because you've just been throwing it on the notes on a kitting ticket, we need you to get away from that and you need to be putting it on a distro. So pretty much if they touch it, it's going to need a distro. The next one there is a kitting ticket, and that one is used by kitting to data collect their time for pre-kits and kitting functions only, just the pre-kits and the kitting functions. And this is where the kitting specific instructions are included. So you see on the right there, if we get everything in the distro the way we're teaching you about today, really on the kitting notes, all you're really going to say is kit per distro, because you already have everything all broken down on the distro. I'll show you that here. But this one here has kit per distro, and then they have to add a label. That's pretty easy. You don't have to do another paragraph of information because it's already on the distro. Nothing that gets hand or machine finished should be on that kitting ticket. That goes on the production ticket. And kit-specific purchases are also allocated to the kitting ticket, so those cartons and stuff get allocated to that kitting ticket. So far, so good? Okay. Next one is the kitting.distro email group. This is kind of more of a reminder that the people who are on that email group are the kit scheduler, kit engineers, kit incoming personnel, kitting machine lead, kit supervisors, and the kitting manager. And it says see job description sheet. Linda's handing it out right now. We're not going to do anything with this. It's just a reminder of this is what everybody does. The thing that we wanted to remind you guys all is if you're communicating with anybody in the kitting department, maybe it's a line lead about a specific project, make sure you're CCing that kitting.distro team, because that line lead may not be here tomorrow. They have rotating days off. Or maybe you think that you're communicating someone that needs to go to the bar, but really you need to also include Heather, otherwise it's not a her visibility. So just if you're not already, get in the habit of making sure that you're including that kitting, that you're CCing kitting.distro on all your communications. And they'll know what to do, they'll know who to pick it up and who to respond, that sort of thing.
And if you are working with a line lead already and you want to contact them and, continue your conversation, still include the kitting distro. They could go home sick, they have a sick child, they run out. It's going to sit in somebody's inbox while they're dealing with their family issues, and we're not going to see it. You can at least pick it up then and run and make sure that stuff gets done.
So the next one is the pick list. This is the one I keep struggling with because we've been calling it a lot of different things, myself included, but we as a team have decided that we're going to call this thing a pick list. And it is the contents of each individual kit. The pick list is created by shipping via the final distro, and you guys make the request of shipping to create these. We'll hand one out and show you in a minute here, but what I wanted to call out is the pick list is not the same thing as the pack list or the packing list. Okay, the packing list goes on the outside and it has some shipping details on it. The pick list is just the contents that they use to pick the items for the kit. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, remember these are TBG specific dictionary, TBG's dictionary of terms, not Webster's dictionary of terms. So some of these things may not be exactly as you're used to, but this is how we're going to operate going forward. Pre-kit is an answer for the following one. It's when multiple components of a kitting project are gathered together and polybagged or rubber banded as a function prior to kitting. Now, this one here, the two key words in this are polybagged and rubber banded. That's it. It's not bringing in a bunch of multiple components. It's polybagging and rubber banding. So the one below that goes into the instructions for pre-kitting. Those go on the distro and not the kitting ticket. That's new. You guys have been putting notes on the kitting ticket for pre-kitting, right? And you've been doing all this stuff where you compile all these different parts and you have to assign it A or B or whatever. That can go away now. You don't have to do that anymore. Because you're putting it all in the distro.
Yeah, no, you don't have to pull them all together is to be a pre-kit. That's our give and take, is you guys don't have to do that anymore. And some of the groups have 7 pages and it's all because of all the pre-kits that they put in there. Put it on the distro, we just pick up the distro and we run.
We're trying to make the distro that one-stop shop, and the kitting ticket is more of just the shell of overall quantity and due dates, that sort of thing. So, pre-kitting is the rubber banding and polybagging, and it goes on, the notes go on the distro. The last one on that page is production tickets. It says these are produced via Collaborate. Mostly there are still a few that enter case, but it's getting less and less and less, so they are in Collaborate. The kitting team does data collect against a production ticket if you have finishing items on it. So all assembly and application information must be on the production ticket in Collaborate, and it has to be via the drop downs, and you see that picture of those drop downs right there. That's super, super important, because if you don't do the drop down, they have a schedule that shows them what comes through for the machinery and their hand finishing, and if you don't use the drop down, it doesn't show up on their schedule. It also alerts them that they're gonna have to order materials. So if you have a whole lot of tape and you can use the drop down and give them some sort of an alert, they could be overnighting it like last minute, and that could be really expensive. So this is their trigger to schedule people and get the materials that they need. There's also that little note there at the bottom that says don't use buyout unless the material is actually not listed on the drop down. A good example of that is if you have like an easel that already has tape on it, you just pull the tape off and you stick it. You still need to alert them that that's coming for application, but we're purchasing any of that tape that's already on there, so that would be a buyout. Somebody brought up like special order magnet, that would be a buyout. If it's not listed as any of those pre-determined drop-down items, those are buyouts, but don't use it otherwise. It doesn't give them visibility to what they need to order for the materials.
And the hub tickets, there's a finishing date, and I've just been using that for, the finishing area where
Like
we sew and.
yeah.
So, as far as like finishing and hand finishing, is there a date that we need to put in there?
Two kidding, the two kidding days.
Just the two kitting date would be the, okay, I just want to make sure. I'm doing it right.
Yeah, it does get confusing that we have the sewing area as finishing. That's why we called it assembly/finishing, because we're trying to make it the distinction between the two. Yeah, so that would be, we could do that. Yep. All right, the last page, the first one on the last page, this one is small format product with finishing operations. So if you have a job that's going through small format that requires anything for finishing over here, such as hand or machine applied tape or magnet, then you have to create 2 tickets in that scenario. So you create your small format ticket first, like normal, but they don't have the visibility from the small format ticket over to the machine finishing over here and the hand finishing over here or assembly. So unfortunately, you have to create another full ticket, and then you do the finishing only, no printing option. I have a picture of that on the sheet. You do another ticket, and then that's where you put that finishing option. That gives them that trigger that it's coming through, and they have to order materials, that sort of thing. So in that scenario, you do that 2 different tickets. Okay. Last but not least is ticket ready. This changes the kitting ticket status from open to ready and sends the kitting.distro group an email alert that the job is ready to be planned. So we have 3 different times that you'd use this, and this might be a little different than what you're used to as well, so that's why we're defining it right now. The first is if you're determining your scope. If you have a large project, you don't have to wait until that distro is fully baked, and you don't have to wait until all the little minor details are figured out. In fact, the sooner you can get the kitting engineers the information, the better, so that they can start doing their job at the same time. So if you finally got that, you're like, I don't have all the details worked out specifically, but I know this is the overall scope. You can click on the ticket ready button, and that gives them an alert that they can start to look at it and dig into it. The second time you use it is when you have purchases, and it says no later than 2 days prior. Again, this gets to making sure that we're not ordering things at the last minute. So if you know that you have anything that you have to have purchased, again, that gives them a heads up that, hey, we might want to look at this so we can get this going and getting it ordered. And then the last one is if there's any changes. So anytime changes are made, make sure you use that change log and add a note, save, and then do ticket ready. This is super important because you may not realize that a date change could change their whole schedule, or a quantity change, or the size of a piece change could change their whole packaging that they had set up. So this is huge that you guys give them those alerts that these are changing, so that if the engineers have to go in and reconfigure, they have time to do that. We're not purchasing the boxes too soon, that sort of thing. So those are the 3 different times.
Super important on the changes that you guys are letting them know as soon as you can, especially if it's going to require a box change. Super important. We have made a lot of corrugate as a company. because we find out at the last minute that something changes and that there's gonna be a bigger piece than was anticipated, and, oh, great, we don't have anything that is going to work, so we're trashing what we already ordered and bringing in something new. And also for the scheduling that she said, we could potentially not have a crew in here, or we could potentially have a crew in here that we're paying to stand around. So it's super important that you guys give them as much time as you can on it. You know, it says 2 days prior. If you know that your work's getting through the shop and you're gonna be done with it actually a week ahead of time, let them know that it's actually getting through the shop a week ahead of time. They can order the cartons a lot quicker and get them in here. We can get a jump on things instead of waiting until the last minute. Any of that kind of stuff, if you know that you're gonna have something that you're waiting till the last minute, that you're waiting on the customer to give you a size or something on that, just keep them in the loop so that they know, so they're not questioning whether they should or shouldn't order. I'm gonna be working with those guys we met this morning. In mid-December, we're gonna be working on what their responsibilities are, what they're gonna communicate to you, how we're gonna communicate, all that good kind of stuff. We'll be coming back to talk about all of that once we get through this, and I get my team trained on this too. Then we're gonna work on their end of it as to what an engineer needs to do and how they're gonna communicate. And I know that there's a lot of gray area in that, and we're gonna try to hammer that out by the end of the year too. Or early into next year.
Do you guys remember that survey I had you guys take out as like what your comfort level was for each area of the curriculum that I was developing? The one that was by far the lowest was kid engineering, just to give you a heads up on that. So hopefully we'll get that better. But
Make sure they know what you do.
But it's a very new position, and that's what I'm figuring is the reason why. So the more that we can figure out how to get you guys working and communicating better, obviously the better. Did anybody get them all right?
Yeah.
Who was first done? Well, we're not gonna get into that. So again, there's deliberate reasons why we included these definitions. These are ones that, you know, throughout time have either gotten muddy or just we had some things that got changed, like for example, the pre-kitting instructions that need to go on the district, or the kitting ticket, that sort of thing. So that's reasons why we had those ones specifically. And as I was talking about before, one of my objectives is make sure that you guys can understand the difference between finishing operations, hand or machine tape or magnet, assembly operations, and pre-kitting operations. So right now what we're going to do is do a small activity. Bonnie's going to be my Vanna White here and help out with this, but I'm going to go around and hand out a sheet for you guys. And what's going to happen is that you have 2 blanks for every item that we're going to show you. Bonnie's going to show you an example of a piece. In these 2 different spots, you're going to fill out if it's pre-kitting or assembly/finishing. And also where you think that these instructions need to be written for kitting. So you can see you've got 2 different spots to fill out. Basically, it's the type of item it is and where those instructions go for what she's going to show you.
Okay, first up, is it assembly, finishing, kind of the same thing and whatnot, and then or pre-kitting. And then also too on your worksheet, where did you guys put the instructions on this? That's one.
Do we just blurt out the answer? Or?
Write it down.
Write it down.
Right after.
Do you need a pen?
Yeah,
Somebody came without a pen. Do you, anybody have an extra?
I think so.
First thing.
You have to draw blood.
I've got like 50 of these now. Thank you.
The body says.
And shoot, I'm gonna do mine for good.
What type is it and where do the instructions go?
Okay, number 2 is
We're going to read 5 examples of those.
Okay, so same thing.
yep, same thing, this is second line. Is it finishing assembly or is it pre-kitting? And where would you guys put the instructions?
Putting that together.
Okay, number 3. number 4.
That's a trick question.
Could be,
How far do we have to break this down?
Yeah.
what you're looking at right now.
Are
What
we
is
talking about what's in the bag or?
the bag as a whole? What is this? A good question.
What are you talking about?
Jordan, you're supposed to whiz right through this since you worked in kidding for so long.
That was many years ago, Linda. Many years ago.
Both did right there, you two.
Yeah. We're acing everything. All the brain power right here.
Can I see?
All the beauty.
Right, more of that.
This is the last one, if I, let me know if we went too fast, because I can.
Can you start over?
Slow down.
Okay.
That is beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Quit looking at mine.
Drinking my chalice. The chalice overflowed.
Samantha wants to put
Drink from within.
I thought that was Matt.
Where the beer from
Okay, so what did you guys come up with for this guy?
Pre-K.
Where would you guys put instructions?
This
Distro, okay. Okay. This one, what did you guys come up with? Pre-kidding? Distro, okay, awesome. There is kind of a, when you look on the back, some of these pieces inside here does have tape on it. As this as a whole, it's a pre-kit, but if you wanted to get more in depth into this right here would be the production ticket and the kitting ticket. So I just wanted to show you guys that there's multiple components going into this pre-kit. Make sense? Okay.
But I wasn't totally wrong.
assembly.
Number 3,
Assembly.
assembly finishing, where would you guys?
Production
ticket.
But and it is
Distro, there's one more. There you go. Woo, I think you're the first group that's up. Number 4,
And then
pre-kitting, yes.
You
And
attach
then
the
more
bond,
print instructions.
Corrugated.
Distro, yep, and this is the same kind of situation. The pieces that were produced in here, this application, we had a production ticket, and then looking at this as a whole, it wasn't a trick question.
It was.
Unless this is a plan.
That was definitely a trick question.
There you go. And the last one,
Think they can get us.
assembly, all right. And then where would you guys find the instructions, or where would you put the instructions for this guy?
Distro.
Distro, yep.
Production ticket.
All right, what do you guys did? Okay.
So this one here, we'll talk more about this one, when we look at the distro, because this one could have multiple production jobs coming together. There even is hardware on it, so we'll show you how you could put that all together on the distro so that it makes sense, and you don't have to do it like paragraph after paragraph of notes. I think you'll see that it makes pretty good sense as to how you can set that up. So now, we will go through the actual distro example. We'll hand out some things for you guys to look at.
Dude, get out your yard.
That was the only thing that. Like, we restarted that here.
Jordan wants to make a trade. Yeah, I remember that.
I'm sorry, excuses. Smart.
I believe that it was Jordan, not Renee. He's like, what?
She's doing her final. Secretary, you're putting her.
Oh,
Always.
You're invited.
presentation.
Yeah, finish your homework. Oh, yeah, it's a full size one. It's tiny. Yeah, you gotta know what to look. I brought my own actually. I brought my own. No, I did. Ask anyone around. I brought a handful.
So what do you guys think, did that activity help clear some things up as far as finishing and pre-kitting, we're seeing an actual example of how that comes together, did that help? Yeah, and as you go, and if you do have questions on this in the future, always ask, we're definitely going to help you kind of figure out where to set these things up at. But right now what I did is we gave you guys 3 different handouts. You have a distro, an example of a distro in the new template. You have a kitting distro requirements handout, and you have a pick list. But what I want you to do right now is just kind of get familiar with this template. Is you have your distro requirements, and there's a number along the side. Take that number and actually write on your distro where they are on the distro, just to kind of get you looking at it and figuring out how this is set up. So on your distro, write your number of what the required item is. Just add a 1, 2, 3, or whatever the item is on the distro itself.
But if it's bulk shipping, it would just have one line, right?
We'll get to that.
On the distro.
Bring that
Oh, this is.
I'm just gonna invite you.
Wow. Yeah, it's like beyond.
Are you going to see that?
What did you say?
Yeah, it's pretty easy, just kind of get you guys to look at it. See what that's set up. So like I said, what I gave you guys, this is the new template. This is the job put into the new template, it's just a made-up job, so it may not be perfect, but what I do also need you to know is that to find the template, it is on the dashboard, under the workflow. It's live right now, so if you go to the distro entry block and you click on the distro form, that's where you can find the new template.
You must have just changed.
I just changed it yesterday, the day before. Yep. So this is the new one, this is what it looks like. This is the one that we're gonna require you guys use, and like I said, when we walk through this, I think you're gonna see that it's gonna help you organize your thoughts a little bit better, at least I know that it would help me. But I'm gonna walk through this right now as the required items. This is where we talked with Bonnie and Linda to see what do you actually need? What do you want TMs to give you so that they're serving you so that you can be successful? And these are the items that they came up with. So you have in the top left, you have the kit ID, that's pretty standard. The revision date, that's super important. If you guys are making changes, that's perfectly fine, but make sure you're updating that revision date and reattaching it to the kitting ticket, because they do look at those often and re-download them as needed. So make sure you're keeping that revision date up to date so that they know that they're looking at the best, most recent version of it.
You want us to delete the old version and replace it with the new version? So you only have one current
On the
version?
kitting ticket.
That would be lovely. Just make sure that you,
Just don't wanna make sure you don't want the history.
Well, and then you would would they go in and do a new ticket ready?
Do you need a hard copy printed and handed in, or do you guys do all that?
nope, we do it all out there.
All right.
It's our Bible, they print them out, they're all trained to do that part of it. The only time we don't kind of need to print them out twice is, last Sephora retrofit where you guys all saw that was out there, that was 1,800 individual lines on a distro, and it was 96 pages long, so we tried to only print that out.
You mean that book with the hardcovers?
John still has it actually.
Yeah, that was a biggie. We won't reprint those out necessarily, we actually turned that into a Google Doc so we could work off of a computer for it, but yeah, we would probably not print that out. We printed out it like once, twice, instead. Yeah. find a better plan, because every time a change is made, it's got a little ugly.
So keep that revision date up to date. Below that, we have customer project name, that kind of makes sense, I just put the Bernard Group in example just for this purpose. Below that, you see parent job number, but you didn't see that on this required list. That's because kidding doesn't require this at all, they don't even look at a parent job number at all. That feels more for you guys. If you wanna have your parent job number on there so you can keep track of what project this is, that's perfectly up to you guys. If you don't need it, you don't need it, but they don't look at it at all, so that's why it's not required. I'm gonna jump down to number 14, the store number, you see where that is on the far left. This is the number that corresponds to the kit that they're creating. Do any of you guys have projects that you ship out that don't have a store number?
Yes.
Yeah, it happens quite a bit. So if that happens, what they're requesting that you do is put in like 1, 2, 3, just auto-populate all the way down. Yeah, just put a number in it so that it lines up, because this helps them assign show the kit matches the shipping label. So she was giving the example earlier that we had 3 that went to Las Vegas and there wasn't any kind of store number on there. They have to literally look at each line item and see, try to figure out which one goes with which. If you just throw a number in there, that makes it way easier. Doesn't have to really mean anything other than that's store number, kit number 1.
And some of you guys probably are aware that when we really get struggling on that, you get to come out and spend some time out in the kitting department. I think there was a day that Bonnie and a PM and another person from the kitting department spent 8 hours out there trying to figure out what was left and right and up and down. We've also had other PMs come out and try to sort through their pick slips and their labels and everything, and can spend 2-3 hours out there. We don't have the time to sit and go line item by line item on these and try to figure out what these things are. And if we do get 3 or 4 that say Las Vegas, Nevada, we don't know which one is which. So it just is going to help us. I really don't think that most people, when they arrive at a store, is looking to see if there's a number on there. So I don't think anybody's going to complain that we've added a number. But it certainly will let us ship the right stuff to the right Vegas store instead of having 4 that all look the same. But there are times that it gets really ugly, and we just have to kind of throw our arms up and say, guys, gotta come out and help us figure this out.
Yeah, that should alleviate all that pain. So that's the store number. Now I'm gonna head over to what we're calling the header section at the top here. You have the assembly/finishing instructions up on the kind of the middle of the page. You see that black bar that's on there? And that there's some rows above that? Everything below that black bar are these required items that we need you to keep there in that order, just like that. That header, those 9 items. We don't want you to insert anything in there differently. We want everybody to start to be able to consistently look at these. This is where these things are going to line up. But above that black bar, if you have other things that you need for your purposes, that's where you can put that. So this example, we had some cartons listed out. This is just something we made up, so it may not be the perfect example, but some cartons that they color-coded. They don't mind if you color-code it for your organization purposes. They have a label description for this pre-kit over there. We'll talk about that. And in this example, we're going to say that it took a couple project managers, so they'll put in the project manager, whatever you guys need, honestly. If it helps them, they'll look at it too. If it doesn't help them, they'll just hide it. So this is more for you guys to organize. I think you guys are used to knowing that there are certain things that you need to help you guys do your job better. You can just put it above that.
Question, if you don't use something, like if you don't have a pre-kit, do you want us to leave it blank or hide that?
Leave it blank.
Yeah,
Just leave it blank.
good question. Yeah, leave it blank. So everybody gets used to looking at those same 9 items in that header every time. But so the top one there, the assembly/finishing one, you can see that there's some instructions in that cell. That is letting kitting know that for that one item, this is what needs to have finishing on it. So again, if you came out to look at the kit, you can see the same thing. Now, talking about the bow example, if you had maybe 2 or 3 different jobs that came together, you could take that finishing instruction cell and just merge it with the couple that go with it. And they would know that these 3 pieces come together to make this one. You probably would merge the alpha code as well to make this one alpha code. If you had, that one has hardware. If you look at the far right on the one I gave you, you have canoe clips over there and you have buttons. Do you see those 2? So you could actually put that hardware item in there as well. So then they know, this is how they know what goes together for that part of the project. So you would just merge those cells together. Does that make sense?
And in that merged cell, that's where you put your instructions. You could copy and paste from whatever you put on your production ticket, but if you wanted us to take the flaps in like this and you wanted us to assemble the bowl and use the canoe clips, you put it on there. You can copy and paste out of that cell and put it on your production ticket, or vice versa, whatever you're putting on your production ticket. So you can just kind of copy and paste, but that's where your instructions would go, and this was multiple jobs. So like she said, we'd have it merged together, and in that merged cell, that's where you tell us what the assembly was, how to put it together. You don't have to put it on the front of your ticket anymore, any of that good kind of stuff. Just this one spot, sorry. You don't have to put it on the kitting ticket anymore. A lot of people were doing that. You don't have to put that on there, just on the production ticket and then in that one cell.
So for the alpha codes, you said if you combine things together like that, maybe it's 3 different correction cards, we just use one alpha code for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because once we go to kit, this is a finished piece, so you're putting just this one
I
out.
mean, it's still called out on here as individual,
Mhm.
so that.
So they know which pieces go. And also on your production ticket, if you have multiple production tickets that come together, in your notes, you could say, use, how did you say it?
They said, instead of putting all the assembly instructions on the production ticket, you could literally say assemble
With job number.
with job number, and you put the 3 job numbers down, and then you put the instructions on here. And we, assemble with these 3 job numbers, we'd go to our distro, we'd read, and then you wouldn't even have to copy and paste. You just tell us which 3 to go look at on the distro. And they'd be merged together, and that's where the instructions would be. We're trying to make it not be quite so much duplicating of everything that you're doing, but yet still get the right information to us.
So that's the finishing instructions. Below that you have the description, that's just the piece description. We have the size and we have the stock. That size is the finished size, so whatever they're gonna see when it gets to them. The important thing about the size and the stock to consider is that, let's say you have a 3/4 inch piece of foam core versus like a 1/4 inch. That's super important for these guys for the kit engineers, for when they're planning the job, so they know what kind of carton to get. It's also important for them out on the line so they can verify that they have it you guys have the product in the right stock, because if it's supposed to be foam core and they see it on a card stock, they could be like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Same with you guys when you go to your kit checks. So that's important as well. Yep.
Bonnie told me during our kit training that we're supposed to put things the largest size to the left to the smallest, and that's not how this one is.
You know who wrote this one?
Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Is that like a trick?
I said this isn't perfect.
That's
We don't do this every day.
That's our preferred method, because when we set up a line, we want to put the first one being the largest one, because it goes in the bottom of the box first. That is our preferred method.
Also, to the planners, they will the filters as well.
When they start doing their manipulating to cook the distro for how many boxes and all that kind of stuff.
Can you say that again so that
In my head,
so that it's shaped in that you were talking about? The size.
Oh. Our preferred method is the largest piece, alpha A, and then working our way down, because the largest piece goes in the bottom of the box first. So we want to pick that first. That's our preferred method, is to have it largest to smallest. As Bonnie was saying, the engineers do manipulate you guys' distros at time, especially to figure out if we're going to have multiple boxes. If we have multiple boxes, they've already rearranged it and everything. But the preferred method is largest to smallest. And with the size and the stock, I'm gonna jump in, super important. If you guys have something that's 3-dimensional, they really, really, really need to know. Heat bent pieces catch us all the time. We have a flat box, and now we have a 2-inch bend we're gonna have to figure out where to put in a flat box. We just had one go through just recently. It said, supply thermometer. Nobody had a size. Well, we ordered a fold over, and we found out that we had almost an inch worth of thermometer that we immediately had to go out and buy bubble bags for. We had to courier them in at $200 to get them here, and the cost for the rush charge and everything, so that we could actually kit that, or we had to scrap all of the corrugate that we had, get new boxes in the next day, and you guys missed a ship date. So it's really important, if you know dimensions, that these guys know what the dimensions are. Hardware, if you have an FFR number and you have a U-line number, something like that, and you don't know what the dimensions are, give it to them. They'll go out on the website, they'll figure it out, they'll find it out, they'll get samples if they needed to. If something comes in early and you have a sample, let them know, so that they can plan around that. We eat a lot of corrugate. We really throw away a lot of corrugate here because we don't have good information coming to us. And size and dimension are really huge. If you're gonna have something that's gonna be cut and you're gonna keep the edges around the outside of it for shipping purposes, like stars and things like that, make sure that they understand that you are keeping that waist around the outside and that they know that's the finished size. That's the size we want on our distro, is the finished size that we're literally gonna put in a box. Those things catch us all the time, and we're always on the fly trying to figure out, you know, our vendors are very good with us and they do work a lot of miracles with us, but those are the little things that catch us off guard, especially the waist around the outside edge. All of a sudden, oh, my star finish size is 30 by 20, but my piece coming to me is 35 by 22. My box is for that star, not for the waist around the outside. So if you are gonna do that, which we really appreciate because then it ships so much easier, just make sure that they know that. Tabs on things. We are at the last minute folding up tabs. We've never estimated to fold up tabs because we didn't know they existed, and all of a sudden here we come with a box that needs to have all these tabs folded up. Let them know. Give them as much information as you can on what it's gonna look like when it arrives to a flat finished piece that's gonna go into a box, so that, I know that when you look at drawings sometimes, you know, you're looking at a box and the tabs, well, they're gonna be part of the box when it's created, and it doesn't go out as that we're shipping a flat, not as a box. So we get caught with tabs all the time and they're trying to fold them over. The more you give them, the better for that kind of stuff, dimensionally and size-wise.
Yeah, and if you look at the two pieces on the far right, we talked about the canoe clips and the buttons. That's kind of where she's talking about, if they're like a thermometer, you could just put the size right in below that, so that gives them a heads up. I did want to call out too with those, the one says it's bagged in 25 and the other says bagged in 10s. When you put it in like that, I'm going to read it as that's how it's supplied to us, that we're getting it in bags of 25. What would you do if you got them loose pieces and you wanted kitting to do that for you? Put them in bags of 25s. Where would you put those instructions?
You guys are really good.
So if you have something like that, then you just put a note pre-kitting and be good to go. And if it's a large size, heat bend piece, whatever, just adding the 3 dimensions as well.
Can I ask one question, sorry? We put pre-kit in for pre-kitting instructions to bag in 10s. Then what's the quantity I put down here? 1?
We're gonna get to that one second.
Okay, sorry.
You're jumping ahead. Good question.
She's got all the questions.
Well, I
in there.
have a
Just
kid
put it
ticket
inside.
and
We're almost to that one, but I'll explain that here in a second. I just want to keep going in order here. So order number, job number, those are pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, if it's pace, it'd be job number, part number. But if it is a collaterate job number, make sure you give it that 6-digit number. That's how they have to track everything. So don't put like page 1, 2, 3. Put it as that 6-digit job number because that's how they track it. I think everybody's pretty much on board with that, but this is another reminder. Now we'll get into the pre-kitting. So it's just one step I had to go over. So if you look over on that pre-kitting column and you look over at the alpha code AI, this is the same thing here, I just have it up here. Oh, let's go down. If you look at the pre-kitting, you can see that how this worked out is very similar to what we were talking about with the finishing. We have the 2 pieces that they have coming together, and then in the pre-kitting instructions here it says gather 10 each of the 2 versions, insert into a poly bag, blah, blah, blah. So that's what you're telling them what to do. And then they merge those cells together, they merge the alpha code together. And even at the top, that label, they merge that label together, so they want you to know that that label actually there's a specific label that needs to go on that when it's polybagged. And they also merge together the SKU. So if they see you guys merge together a SKU, they're gonna assume that whole polybag is gonna go to fulfillment. If it's separate, then they're gonna assume it's flat pieces. When it comes to these quantities, you guys have that pick list that I gave you as well. That's actually for the first store. You can see kind of how they line up with the AA, AD, AC. With the pre-kit there, it's telling them that you want 1. So in this case, they want 1 polybag item. So what you put in those columns is the number of polybagged items that you want for this example. So if you have 5, they read that as they want 5 polybags. So even though it says up here gather 10 each of 2 versions, that you don't need to put the 10s because they're going to assume that they're 10 polybags. You want it to be 1 if 1 goes in the kit. Make sense?
Yeah, so if I have 4 different parts going into 1 poly bag and I just want 1 of each of those 4, I just say 1 poly bag.
1 in all the 4 different columns, and then that's how shipping knows to put 1 on the fix list.
So if in that case I had versions, so it's the same job number, same part number, version 1, 2, 3, 4. Should I still break that out and just call version 1, 2, 3, 4? So it's the same
But
size.
you wanna bring that out afterwards?
Yeah.
I think that, I think I know what you mean, but I think I need to see a visual.
My question is, then on this one that we're talking about, is the production quantity wrong then
Yes,
It's,
on this?
wait, wrong, how so?
because she's, what
It
she's
says
asking
that
is,
10, but you only have 57 as a
Oh,
quantity.
yes.
yeah, we just.
On pre-kids, that's gonna be, you're gonna have a quirky one. Most everything you will be able to go off of that for your production quantity. That one's gonna be a quirky one because we can't put the full quantity in there, or our pick slips will read 10,
Okay.
and it'll, we have an awful lot of, temporary staffing that works with us, and so when we give them pick slip, they need to know that they're looking at AI and they're picking up one bag. If you put AI and it comes out as a 10, then they're gonna pick up 10 bags.
Yeah, and so, yeah, getting down into that total shifts, total FGI, and total production quantity at the bottom, that's numbers 14, 15, 16. How we defined that was, for the total shipped quantity, it's the quantity needed for the entire kitting and or finishing process, so that goes back to what we were just talking about, this is the quantity needed back to the loose pieces, right? Yeah. Then you add in your, total FGI quantity there, and then they'll know that Frank and Tony will know to take 10 of these for FGI, and then you have your overall total production ticket quantity, which is everything that you would put together to make a production ticket, your total quantity that way. I think that should help organize you guys a little bit too as well.
And how, you know, like, these ones are 10, so you can take the bottom one and add the 0, and you know what your total quantity for production was gonna be. That one's pretty easy peasy. But yeah, there's not a really good way of, that was our goal, was to make that whole bottom where you could just match production quantities. Doesn't work out with the pre-kids.
I have a question. So why wouldn't you merge those two cells? So it's just one all the way down?
Oh, you mean
That's
all the way down?
Yeah, because you have like AI is merged in the SKU, why, the quantity, why would that be merged? So it just says one once. That's the only thing that's confusing.
Do you need a charter?
I do.
Because one thing that
But I do want to hear this answer,
would
because
have listed.
my theory and logic was because the total finished goods quantity might be different for the two of them, because they may not actually go in finished goods inventory. One SKU. So she wants to keep them separate.
She just answered it. We're making consistencies, and if you were not going to put those in as a pre-kit and you were going to put those in as individuals, you'd need 3 SKU numbers up there. So if you merged it all as one cell, they wouldn't really know. And say, if you wanted to put in, say this was actually 3, and you were only gonna put 2 into inventory, you would need the extra columns so that they knew how many they were putting in there.
But Corinne, didn't you say that?
It also gives you guys an awful lot more work if you merge in all those cells.
If you merge
Yeah,
them
you have to do
into
them all
one.
by hand.
Right, yeah, I
You
got it.
have to merge
So,
all of
The
those.
whole one, all the way, each one individually.
Yeah, you'd have
A lot more work merging all those cells. A lot easier just to drop it in there one time.
Okay. We also ran it by shipping to see how it would work with them to create the pick list, and it didn't work when we merged it. So basically, just add however columns you have, just put the quantity for packing, or for poly bags or whatever, and then they know what to do from there.
Okay, and it's only gonna show up on the pick slip one time. Okay.
As long as you merge that alpha code.
Yep,
Got it.
if they go off of the alpha code.
Yep.
Not only that, for down the road as we get into animation.
Animation.
You're gonna have to have it as individuals, so that it can pull. So it's just a habit that we're trying to create and get built for when that comes along. It'll be less stress trying to, I just started doing it this way, now I gotta do it this way, it'll be less stress doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense now.
And it's a lot
It
of work
looks
to
weird
merge all,
at
a
first, but it makes sense.
lot of work to merge all those cells. We had talked about it one time, I'm like, I don't wanna be merging all those.
Another thing that you don't see on here is thumbnails. I think that's something that you guys think that you're doing to help the kitting team, but you're really not, because it takes forever for them to open them, and it loads, and it's wasting a lot of toner on the printer, and it's just a large file, like,
Wheel going around is kind of brewery.
she can get into what the kid engineers have to do when you guys do that kind of stuff. They definitely don't need it and don't want it.
Wow.
I think,
Justin absolutely loves it, because then he has to copy your distro, remove all your thumbnails, and then he's gotta return it to you. and then if you make a change, he has to copy it again, remove all the thumbnails.
Wow.
It becomes an awful lot more work for the kidding area.
So you,
At first, we were all like, oh, that's really cool, and then we realized we really couldn't see enough of it to make it be cool to work out there. And then everybody would be spending more time trying to figure out which one it was. So then they just ignored them and went by the job number and the part number. So it is much easier. Saves you guys all the work putting them on there, all that good kind of stuff. So we would prefer not to have them on there.
So what do you guys think? Does this make sense to you? You think you can use this? I mean, the big key thing is that those 9 areas at the top, that header section just has to stay the same. And then everything else is pretty standard. And they said you guys are doing a good job of getting them a lot of the information. It's just kind of all over the place. And so this way we can all look at the same thing the same way. Like, again, I think it's going to help you organize your thoughts. And we have less items on the kidding ticket because you can just put it all out right here, which is going to save some time in the long run as well.
If you have really big distros like Sephora, they can have 5 or 6 different people work on the same distro, the same like POV. They're all making it consistent now, so they don't have to go, oh, when I'm working on this one, I do it this way, and when I'm working on this one, I'm doing it this way. It's all super consistent, and you can just plug and play with each other, you know, being able to help each other out, so I think it'll help that way.
I'm assuming that if you, like some distros come over from clients where the quantity is actually listed as 0, you'd probably rather have just a solid blank rather than having to fish out, because it's easier to, at a glance to read at, I'm assuming.
Please.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, because there can be times that 3/4 of the distro is 0s.
Yes.
Whoa. Gets a little crazy. The one thing that was asked too is we were talking about SKUs, a couple of things regarding SKUs and FGI stuff. If you have things going over as individuals, you'd fill out the SKU number in the SKU section here for the individuals, and then if you had, in that scenario we showed you for bulk where you had some bulk pieces and you had some kits, if you had kits going over to FGI, you would merge up on top and put the SKU number up on top so that we knew that it was full kits.
Above that
So
line.
that we could do both of those. Filling out your distros, FGI, if you do not put a quantity in here, kidding will throw it away. Even if you have a SKU, we'll throw it away. Can't do anything without a total. We do not count FGI. That's not our world, that's Frank and Tony's. And when we take it back to them, if there's 0s in there, they push it back to us and yell at us. So our process was trained out that if we don't have quantities, we throw it away. All that's under quantity, asking Kitty to count as a quantity, it has to have a quantity in here because we don't count. We get the stuff off of our lines and get back onto the next job so that we can keep fulfilling everybody's needs. And so if you don't have it in here, fair warning, it'll get thrown away. If you don't have it in here and it gets back to Frank and Tony, there's a good chance they'll throw it away or give it back to us. So if you do definitely want something going FGI, we need to have those totals. That's a big thing that keeps going through. Somebody had asked me earlier, I said, you know, put the quantity in there. You produce so much, you ship so much, the balance is what's left over, that's what's FGI. And they said, well, what if we have 15 extra? I said, then you work that out with Frank and Tony. You still have to put a quantity in here and work it out with them if you can ask them to do a certain more percentage or whatever. It's not a kidding function to do the FGI, so I just want to make sure everybody knows that that has to be done up front or it does get thrown away. And the rework's not going to go against us. It's a company thing that we rolled out before. We haven't enforced it. Starting
I can't even show you my slides. Yeah, so the last slide on here was basically your next steps. The next steps here is we're gonna roll out some homework for you guys. Don't get nervous, it's not that crazy. I just wanna make sure that every individual understands that you take this raw data and you put it into the distro. It'll be like a 5 or 10 minute deal, I mean not 5 or 10, probably like a 10 or 15 minute deal. I can see you guys are looking at me and nodding, but I can't see that you fully grasp it. So tomorrow I'll be sending out an email with some raw data. Just want you to throw it in the distro and then give it to your PMRLs by 11:30, November 30th. So
11:30 tomorrow morning.
no. Tell you not to be worried about it. I'm like, get to So you'll have some time to look over it. Your PMRLs are here for help as well. And then You also have a global assessment that I'm gonna push out, again, just to make sure you guys fully understand this. This isn't like to make, we're not trying to catch you, get you guys in trouble. We wanna make sure that the training is effective. If there's something that we still need to fully train on, I need to know so that I can continue pulling you guys together and giving you some more information that you need. So both of those are gonna be due by 11:30, and so the go live date is December 1st. So between now and then, you can check out the distro, see if it works, see if you have any questions. We're here to help if you have questions. But as of December 1st going forward, we want you to start using the new distro. Obviously, if you're in the middle of a project, you don't have to redo it, but, Jill's like, yes. But, yeah, as of December 1st and going forward, start using the new template because, once Gideon gets trained as well, they're gonna get trained on the distro and on the terms, and now that you guys have been trained on the distro and the terms, after the go live date, they're gonna get trained on how to put jobs on hold. So they'll be starting to put your jobs on hold as well in Gideon, just like prep does and everybody else does. So that'll also help us see if we are effective in the training, and if I need to come back and give you some more training as well.
They asked us to do that in February, and we said we needed to get this under control first.
We didn't feel like it was fair.
We are here.
So now,
Do you have this distro saved somewhere?
yes, I can't show you again, but on the workflow,
Okay.
on the workflow, it's under number 20 under the kidding stuff.
Yep.
Tomorrow when I send out the email, I'll attach the raw data. I will send a direct link to the distro, and I'll provide the samples of the things that we talked about today, just so you have the definitions and everything. I'll answer any last minute questions that kind of popped up that we didn't know the answers to, or reiterate some of those answers. And again, you have until the 30th if you have questions. This isn't meant to make you nervous, it's just meant to, for us to see that you understand it.
Bonnie doesn't write distros, and she did them in a matter of like 5-8 minutes, something like that. She doesn't do it every day. She looks at them, but she doesn't write them, and she put it together really pretty quickly, so it shouldn't take you too much. But as you got Green as a resource, you have Bonnie as a resource, you have John as a resource, you have her PMRLs as a resource, and if you can find me, I'm a resource. I'm a little harder to track down than the rest of the team, but we definitely are here. We want to make this easy, we want to make it better, and I think that once everything starts clicking, it's going to be like, I get it. Jenny's got an overachiever in her group. He's already using the new distro format, and he hadn't even gone through training, and he had talked to me 3 times on what he was looking at for sure. I was super excited to see him out there just like trying to figure it all out. Attaboy. I was really concerned, and he's doing a good job, so. You got a little overachiever out there.
I think you'll see that this isn't that difficult. You're already providing this information, now we're just asking for consistency. Then down the road, look at the automation, it'll be even better.
But you'll have that hand.
Well, if you guys have any more questions, that's all you got for you guys. Thank you. Guys. I know it's long, but a lot of information.
Thanks, Renee.
You're welcome. So you signed in, that's how I'm gonna set up the format.
2 cells. Format cell.
Stop the thing, Bonnie.
Second tab.
Is everybody